Hey guys, it's Jonathan McCormack. I'm an attachment specialist, and you can find me over at attachmenthealinghelp.com. I want to talk about attachment and shame. I actually believe this is a plague on our modern society, and that there's almost an economy of shame, particularly body shame, and particularly as it appeals to attachment. Shame, and body shame specifically, is very much tied up to attachment problems, intimacy issues. I just did a workshop with Andrew Leeds, guy who does EDMR and ego work and stuff with eating disorders. And he shares this, everyone knows this, that his daughter starved to death, anorexia, was killed. Eating disorders are one of the few that are very deadly, and they're serious as heart attacks. And they're exploding among people, men and women, you know. Problem is, when you feel shame, you cannot be here for a connection. If you're ashamed of your real self, you will not show it. I remember I worked in some would say, the worst mental institute in America, certainly, perhaps the Western Hemisphere. You know, there are children who are so behaviorally disordered, they're permanently put in the mental ward. Then occasionally, even those children become too unmanageable. And then they'd go to my place. And I was just low level, I just worked there. And the idea was that they'd come to this place, get settled down, they get set back. But the mental wards would never take them back, ever. And we'd have them for years. It was a very sad place. One night, though, a young girl came in, like 14, 15 years old. And the story, it turned out, though, is that her father just got out of prison in a van with his buddy. And, assaulted her. And as the police were asking her what happened, she had a psychotic break. And she came to this place. Well, it turns out I knew her. Not well, but buddy's buddy. And, she was the typical, I'd hear her father complaining, oh, she's trying to wear these short dresses to school, and typical things 14-year-old, 15-year-old did. After that, weeks after she got out of that situation, I would see her around, and I'd talk to her father, and she hated herself. She hated her body, and she would wrap it up, and she would purposely make herself look ugly. She would shave her head, all those things. Kind of hard to have an intimate relationship, but it's amazing to see that happen. Just 1, 2, 3. This terrible trauma happens. You can heal from that, by the way. So the guy who wrote Gilbert and McGuire actually wrote the book on attachment and body shame and shame. And there's lots of types of shame, but their idea is that's mostly social, social ranking. Men feel very ashamed, working class men. It's not like in the 1950s where the working class man was the backbone of America. No, you're the loser. If you're a garbage truck man, if you're this, you're a loser. Now that, you probably wouldn't have a family. I was talking to this older woman in her 70s, and she was just saying, yeah, my father delivered milk. And then he was a taxi driver for a while. And they lived in a house. He had made enough money just from doing that. That won't happen today, So just that is kind of shameful. And the more shame you hold, the less of your real self you'll be able to share. So it's often perceived as your social attractiveness goes down, a threat, because if you're in some sort of tribal society, the guy on the bottom pole is going to be like the first one out. He's going to be the first, if they don't have enough food, that's the guy who's not getting any. And that's you. Besides that, if you're in a low social status, you're not going to get a husband or a wife or children, whatever it is, So it actually does tell your body being low social status, that something's a little up, something's a matter. The actual, with attachment styles, it's kind of like, if you're secure, then you view yourself positively and you view others positively. If you're anxious, preoccupied, you view yourself negatively. I hate myself. But you view others positively, you know? I mean, a lot of women, they feel stupid. I feel so stupid. But the man, you know, can do no wrong, you know, or if he does, there's a lot of reasons why he's like that. Dismissive, avoidant people have a positive view of the self on the surface, a positive view of themselves, and use a negative view of others. You see avoidance, they kind of have that superior attitude, and they do that for a reason that actually protects them, because they have such really a weak sense of self that they have to kind of chop other people's heads off so they look tall. The fearful avoidant, who experience a lot of fear in childhood, they usually see both themselves and other people negatively. So, I mean, listen, if you do experience shame, you're going to move away from people, towards them, or against them. You know? Are you going to attack yourself? Are you going to attack the other? Both? Are you going to withdraw? That will depend on your attachment style, you know? If you attack yourself, that's when you feel anger and contempt towards yourself. And the inner critic is just disgusted with whatever you're ashamed of, disgusted of you. If you withdraw, you're trying to limit the damage to yourself, you know? Like, oh no, too much shame, that hurt. If you attack others, that's when you don't accept the shame. You know, someone says, you know, like, oh, you're pretty ugly. You don't accept it, you throw it right back at them, you know? So that shame is not even legitimate. You will feel bad, you know? And, you know, in avoidance, the shame message is completely denied. They just don't acknowledge it, you know, who cares? They dismiss it, I don't care, you know? So when it's not accepted or acknowledged, the sense of self will be damaged, but the person won't actually metabolize it and won't be able to work through that. So why specifically body shame, though? Body shame is very specific because it disconnects you from your own self, from your own body. Well, not the number one, but top 3 problems of attachment disorders is not being in your body. You know, where do you feel this? Where do you feel that? It's in your body. Where do you feel joy? It's going to be in your body. Where do you feel connection with someone? It's going to be in your body. Avoiders are special on another planet. They're just kind of disassociated from their body. They don't know what they're feeling. And if you're ashamed of your body, you're going to feel very alienated from your real self, right? Number 2, it isolates you from others. You know, if you feel ashamed of yourself, you isolate. You don't want to talk to other people. You know how many people I know, they're ashamed of their lives. I say, hey, let's go here, let's go there. No, because someone will talk to me, and they'll be going on about their house and their wife, and they'll turn to me, and what will I say? I work and I come home, I watch Netflix all day, you know? I mean, no, I'm too ashamed. You know, if I had a husband or a family, then yes. It also distorts your identity. You can't have an authentic relationship with someone unless you're your real self. It skews your self-perception, how you define yourself, you know? Anything that contradicts that message, you'll just turn away from. And also, fourth, if you have body shame, you tend to reject self-care. Like you're just unworthy of that attention, you know? Why would I, you know, like I knew a guy who was, his hair was always a mess and whatnot, you know? And I was like, oh, why don't you, clean up? Why? Why would I? Why would I, you know? It made no sense to him. And fifthly, there's a lot of negative self-talk, you know, if you have body shame. And shame in general, you kind of feel small, worthless, powerless. in the situation. At the same time, you're very exposed and vulnerable. You know? Basically what's happening in shame, it can be defined as the emotional experience of someone else's scorn. Because it's not really how you feel. You think the other person feels that way. Whether it's real, you might be right. That other person absolutely might be disgusted by you. You know? But that's where the shame comes. Because you think that. And you give meaning to that. I mean, really, who cares? Who cares? If someone you didn't care about at all, someone you have no respect for, came up and said you're ugly, no big deal. And if your lover said that to you, devastating, because the meaning is completely different. The stakes are different, but the meaning, you're like, yes, you might lose that person, but deeper than that, if they're right, that means maybe you're unlovable. That means maybe, you're beyond help. There's meanings. Yes, you're worried you're going to lose that person if you hear that too, obviously. It's more than a feeling, though. People think shame is an emotion. It actually affects multiple systems of the body. Shame operates below the level of rational thought. And actually the autonomous nervous system is triggered by shame. Your heartbeat and whatnot. So that kind of suggests that the brain sees shame as a crisis, a threat. That threat's real because that threat to relational bonds and those resources they carry. Try to live all by yourself. Way back in the day, you couldn't. You just couldn't. Another thing about shame, I'm not saying it's narcissistic. You don't think you're great. You don't think I'm so wonderful. But you do think of yourself all the time. I don't blame you. I mean, when people say it's very self-centered. Yes, it's self-centered because they're seeing things as a threat. If you're on fire, and saying, I'm on fire, what I say, I'm like, oh boy, it's all about you, really. Okay, you're still going on about being on fire? My Lord, Of course, if you're on fire, there's a threat. You're thinking about who? Yourself, But it is self-absorbed, self-centered, and that isolates you. And oftentimes, when you're feeling shame, you don't realize the effect it has on other people. You just think I'm just going to withdraw. But when you do that, it can hurt other people, And I'm not saying, a lot of people do see that, but I'm saying shame prevents a lot of people from even seeing that. And if you can't see that, that's troubling implications for developing attachments, The two perceptions that create shame are powerlessness and helplessness. They're a little different. Powerlessness means I can't influence the environment. Helplessness means I can't empower myself. Helplessness, I'm helpless. Powerless, there's nothing I can do. The schemas, the shame-based core messages with this are I'm not good enough. I don't belong. If you start veering towards the suicidal, all of a sudden you start getting, I'm not lovable. And then, I should not exist. Oof, when you get there, that's trouble. You should absolutely, red flag should be going up. And when this happens, though, you lose your real self. So, they did find losing the love of another brings shame. Even if it wasn't your fault, even if they died. But if you've had a lot of breakups, that personal history of disrupted attachment is intrinsically shame-filled. Even if it wasn't your fault, even if it was, if you had 5 husbands or 5 wives, freak accidents, it doesn't matter. Your brain perceives that as a shameful thing. Men are devastated by divorce. Devastated. Look at the suicide statistics. When they get divorced, I failed as a man. I don't think a lot of women understand why that is. I can explain, but it would take a minute. But shame always follows personal betrayal. And by betrayal, I don't mean normal betrayal, but also when you're a child and your mother doesn't protect you. from your father yelling, or vice versa. When the parent doesn't protect you, that's sensed as a betrayal. I do a couple things, parts work, and I do ideal parent figure protocol. And in that, one of the 5 fundamental needs is the feeling to be protected. And if you don't feel like that, you will be very angry. Even if your mother or father did nothing technically, they, in your little child mind, they ought to have protected you from X, Y, and Z, whatever it was. A mean grandpa, whatever. When this happens, even positive attention can trigger shame, because positive attention was painful as a child. So you'd think if some guy or some girl is like giving you some positive attention, that's wonderful. But it's not. People who would accept compliments, it's like that on steroids, So I will say that shame in the body always coexists with a deeper shame about oneself. So you can address your body all you want, okay? You can get as good looking as you like. If that shame is inside you, your body will never look good enough, ever, ever. I know so many people that lost weight, and then they start to date. But then they have loose skin. Oh, and the skin looks terrible. And, I said, well, you lost all that weight. You must feel great about yourself. No. Even if they're like 200 pounds, inside they're still the fat kid. They're still the fat kid. They're still the ugly kid, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I had a friend who had a facial deal until he's 12. No, he's older than 12, boy. He was like 17. He got it fixed. And he was a good-looking guy after that. But he didn't know what the hell to do with it, And I would suggest that shame never is productive. And also, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. One thing you can get to that is, yes, like, well, why would I feel ashamed? Why would I feel ashamed? Because that person would leave me, but that wasn't mean. It has some meaning. When people, I was just talking to someone, not a client, just someone today, and she lost tons of weight, but has loose skin. Doesn't like her body to begin with. And this is like an enemy to her. For avoidance, a lot of times her body is an enemy, and they're disgusted by it. And big part of intimacy is being in your body and expressing your body to someone else. So with an avoidant person, someone that hates their body, and it's, I just see this a lot in young girls, and it's like devastating. I mean, they're practically having panic attacks, and the media and everything doesn't help. But don't think this doesn't affect guys either. It affects so many men. That they're too short, they're too this, they're too that. And I wish I could show them. I lost tons of weight in the same thing, loose skin. This is terrible. And now I don't care. It doesn't matter. They'll say this is terrible. I have loose skin. I don't know. It just happened. But I would love to just take my shirt off and just show it. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Why? Because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. You really are more than your body. You're more than your body. You're not your personality. You're not your patterns. People say, I am a depressive. I am an anxious. That's your, those are patterns. That's not you. There's something deeper, and you know that. And we all know that. In IFS, they call it the self. The this, the that, whatever. I'm telling you, when you get really deep inside, there's something inside you, and it wants to help. And this thing is kind of like a self-healing apparatus. But this type of shame can only live in the darkness. once it's brought into light, it evaporates. It evaporates. I'm tempted to take my shirt off just so you can. I'll just show. This is Benny. He's out there. I know, brother. I know. But look, this is my. After losing all the weight, I had this happen. And see, look. It's all terrible. Well, I've had cuts and stabs and everything too. But that's kind of how it looks. And it's not perfect. That's me going to the gym all the time. But my point is that the people who started complaining about that and other things had this deep self-disgust that couldn't get out. The other problem is if you get contradictory messages, that will not take care of the messages you originally had from childhood. It's kind of like if you see a big cylinder and you fill it with red sand. Then you fill it with blue sand. What happens to the red sand? Nothing. That's still there. The blue sand's the new learning. So you see these people, and they'll be sometimes even in wildly successful relationships, but they can't accept it. And not only can they can't accept it, gradually they'll mold it into that reality. Their reality is they're hated. And they'll mold it slowly, edge it towards that. There's a couple of things you can do about this, though. Briefly, shame. It's just like trauma. It's timeless. In other words, it exists in the unconsciousness. And the mind almost always thinks it's happening now. Trauma, when something happens, it's almost like, 'cause it's so serious, the mind blows it up a picture and gets stuck. And sometimes that's all you can see. You can't see anything else. So part of the what you're doing is wanting to get the unconscious to update, to tell the difference between then and now. You can do this a couple different ways. Parts work, right? So say, I do like somatic IFS stuff too. So what I do, if someone's feeling shame, just say, get in touch with that. Go back to that moment. Say it happened this morning. I was just felt shame. Okay, get back to that moment. Be there now. Start focusing on your body. Where do you feel the shame in your body? And you get in touch with that. Where is it? Get it closer, make it bigger. You should do this with a therapist, because if this is you have trauma, don't do this. Get in touch with it. And now go back, talk to that part. If that shame could say, how old do you think that feeling is? Whatever question, whatever way you like to think about it. But just use that and float back to childhood, when perhaps you first felt that shame, or the first memory of that shame. And something will pop up, and you'll have that little kid. And at that point, you can ask that little kid, witness to it. What's going on? What are you feeling? Ask what it needs. You can have the client, give love to that kid. Ask what would you do if you saw this 8-year-old going through this, feeling all the shame? Well, I would, hug it, do this, do that. And you take it out of there. All the time feeling in your body. I'd be like, what does that feel like? Well, you just heard that. And that kind of gets the unconscious to say, yeah, that thing that I was shamed when I was 8 is no longer happening. I'm no longer 8. I'm no longer at the whims of a parent who chooses power over compassion, And you try to get the you try to get the mind updated when you do IFS. Sometimes you'll I'll say ask that part, if it's a part. Yes, ask that part, that shame part. How old does it think you are? And a lot of times it'll be 8, 9 years old. That part, there's a part of your mind that doesn't have a continuity of time. That's why an attachment, it's like 3 things you're trying to do. One of them is to build a story. Narrative is so important. If you do the narrative, you're taking the right brain, and you're laying the left brain influence the right brain. The left brain has all the facts. The right brain has the emotions, the intuitiveness, and you're bringing it together. That's how you do it, to have a cohesive narrative. And this helps you have a cohesive narrative, The other thing is shame seems to block the little children seeing anything good in themselves. And so you can have the client go back there and have the client witness, I won't even give suggestions. I'll just be like, well, what do you think? If you were there and you saw yourself, pretend you're there at 8 years old, getting yelled at, and this 8-year goes, yeah, I'm nothing. What would you say? That way they get in touch with this compassionate self part, and they'll tell the kid, this is wonderful about you, that is wonderful about you. You get the kid to realize that every child deserves unconditional love, every child. And you get the child to understand that what happened didn't say anything about him or her. It said something about the parent. It's the parents, they're busy. But a child interprets that as I must be defective. So you try to get that in conscious, be like, no, the meaning, that's not the meaning. You go back to the memory, you give it a new meaning since you're older, more mature, The other thing that's interesting is a lot of people who experience shame are not good at making restitution. So they'll do something they don't like I was supposed to give this back to my friend. He lent it to me, and I just never did it. I feel so bad. I feel so ashamed. And I'm like, what are you going to do about that? He's like, well, I'm ignoring him. I'm not taking his calls, or if he doesn't bring it up, I won't. And that shame festers. They don't have a real, in every relationship, there's going to be ruptures. What's important is the repairs. People with attachment have very difficult with those repairs. They just won't have that conversation. And if a child is filled with shame, it is filled with different parts. Parts of it will believe it. So even when I do parts work, I'll go back and I'll say, the parent thinks you're awful. Wow, what do you think about that? And the adult client will be like, well, he did spill all that milk. He is kind of a shit kid. I'm like, how can an 8-year-old be? How's that even? But in their minds, yeah, he did all these things, So another interesting thing to do is take the belief. So the belief is I'm unlovable, or whatever. Katie Brine does this. He asks, is it true? The client will be like, yes. Is it really true? It's about your body shame. If someone sees my body, I'll be rejected. Is it true? Do you know that? Do you know that for a fact? And then what would it look like if you didn't have that belief? What would it look like if you didn't have that belief? So we can do a quick meditation just on this. There's a poem by C.K. Williams called A Gaff, and it goes, I could hear the boy's mother sobbing inside, then stopping, sobbing, then stopping. Was the end of her grief already there? Had her someone in her told her it would end? Was there somewhere in her kinder, not tearing at her, as mine did, still does me, for guessing grief someday loose ends? Is that why her sobbing stops sometimes? She didn't laugh, though, or I never heard her. How do you know when you can laugh? Why couldn't someone have been there in me, not just to accuse me, but to explain? The kids were playing again. I was playing. I didn't hear anything more from inside. The way now, sometimes what's in me is silent too. And sometimes, though never really, forgets. I like this because he presents these parts, one a critical part and one that explains. And when you look at trauma, it's not what happens to you. A big part of it is whatever happens to you, are you able to tell a narrative, make sense of it, mentalize it? It's a huge part of any recovery. One of the reasons I took my shirt off, it's for this meditation we'll do, is because if you do have body shame, any shame, this works with some phobias too. So the idea is that if you avoid something, your mind will say, oh, this must be really bad. So if you avoid exposing your body or something, your mind will get that message. So what you do is you go and you purposely try to do this. You purposely try to expose your body and get embarrassed. Purposely, though. Because if you're doing it on purpose, then the mind says, oh, going, now expose my, and being embarrassed is okay. So I knew this guy, we were doing therapy training. He was terrified of saying the wrong thing. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm with a client and he's suicidal? I say the wrong thing. He got so frozen in this. So the teacher, this great guy, he had him do it on purpose. He put him in a session. He goes, I want you to say something that you know will really flip out the client. At least 3 or 4 times. And he kept practicing, He'd do that. He'd do a practice with me, with other people. And at first his face would get bright red. And at the end, it was almost a joke. And the mind got it. Like, it's okay to say something terrible. You know, it might happen. You know, in other words, you're not going to die. Okay? That's not something you have to worry about. You know, monitor it, but you don't have to worry about it. So my suggestion in this meditation is we're going to imagine exactly what you want. You know, the intention would be like you can go out, show your body, and not care what other people think. Okay. So let's take a moment. Just relax. Just start bringing the awareness into the body. Now close your eyes and imagine yourself in a huge movie theater. And you go all the way down, down to the second row. And you sit in the middle. And the screen comes on. You have to crank your head up to see it all. And up there is someone just like you. Only about 10 years older and a little heavier. So they got 30 pounds on you. Older than you. And you see them clearly on the beach. And they're walking around. And it's a nude beach. And slowly, they take off their suit. They take off their suit. And there's a group of children with a group of parents, fathers with great bodies, the women exquisite. And they see you. They see this person. And they're looking at this person, and they start laughing. And this person looks up and sees this. And this person just smiles back and just continues walking with the shoulders back, chin up, in their power. They don't care. Now, go all the way to the right side of the screen in the movie theater and play that again. Right? So now you're looking all the way up to the left and you're looking at it and you see that same person walking down the beach, take off their clothes. You see children start laughing at them and pointing. The parents looking at each other and giggling. Yeah. Now go to the left side of the movie theater and look up on your right and see that again and see this person walking down the beach. They take off their clothes. The children are laughing at them. And they're totally fine. They kind of just smile a little bit and keep on walking. Okay, movie screen goes off. A new picture starts. And now it's you on the screen, and you're huge. You're in the second row, and you are huge. It's a huge screen, and you see yourself there. Yeah. And now it's you. You can see yourself. You see your body walking in some skimpy thing, maybe some short shorts if it's a guy, and you're walking in the same thing. You pause to take your clothes off, and it's you now. And you bend over, and you see the look of your face, and all of a sudden people are laughing at you. The kids are laughing at you. Oh, you recognize it's your neighbor. Maybe it's even an in-law. Maybe even it's your grandmother. All these people are there laughing at you. Yeah. But you just shrug your shoulders and keep going. Yeah. So now this time, start again. Now it's you on the screen, walking. Now you go in the screen. You just slip into the screen and into your real body. And now you're in your real body, and you're looking at it through your eyes in first person, and you're walking down the beach, and you're a little nervous, but not really. And you stop, you look around, and now in first person, you lean down, you take off your shorts, you feel them slipping off your body. Take off that, take off the next thing, right? You hear laughter. There's some warmth in your skin. You look up and you see, oh my God, it's your neighbors, your kids. And oh my God, your ex. Your ex is there. Your ex is looking at your body, and you see all these things, and you don't care at all. You smile, and then you put your shoulders back, chin up, and you continue walking into the sand, walking towards the ocean, and you're still walking towards that beautiful ocean in the sunlight with all this new confidence. All that gunk cleared out. And now, when you're ready, you can come back and open your eyes. Okay, I hope that helped. If anyone has any questions on this, or you want to, don't give me like weightlifting advice. Like I go to the gym 5 days, and that's the best I can do, my dude. All right, so you guys take it easy. I appreciate you guys listening to me.